together, they can actually build. That's not the differentiator. The differentiator probably is the brand. And I'm really inspired by what Grant Lee, one of the founders of, actually the founder of Gamma, the app on which this presentation is running, spoke recently about, and I happened to be at one of his talks, a month or so back. And he talks very candidly about how brand is a real differentiator in this world. So we'll, of course, borrow some learnings from there. But before we get into that, and I'm not no expert, your professors are going to be experts at telling you what brands are. But to distill, brands are great promises of unique value that help you create like a differentiated perceived value of your product or your offering. But at the at the ground level, essentially you're making a promise, and if you keep that promise, you earn trust. That's literally what a brand is, right? And if you keep repeating on earning trust, then people will bring more people to you, and that's how word of mouth and the general belief or the osmosis about your company and your brand is how your brand is really established. But here's the thing, and this is from another person, his name is Gaurav. Gaurav Kushwaha, the founder of Blue Stone. He once, said this very interesting thing to me. He's like, in our business, and they're selling online gold jewelry, we can't earn trust. So we have to offer trust. So how do you offer trust? They literally had a 30-day money back, exact same invoice value money back policy on gold jewelry in a market in which gold prices fluctuate. Why? Because how else do you establish trust in an online first world? Right? In a category like jewelry. So it is very hard to earn trust unless you are willing to offer trust. And there are various ways in which you can offer that trust. And one of those things is probably purpose. We are talking about circularity and scalability and a bunch of those things. But what is it? At the ground of it, it's all purpose, right? It's basically having a common goal. We are here for a purpose today. We are here to exchange ideas about what we believe the future of the business world will look like. That's a common goal. That's why we are here. There is an element of trust that you are interested somewhat vaguely in listening to it, apart from it being a compulsion on Sunday morning. And we are interested in talking about it. Okay. And also that we have some context about the problems that we are going to talk about, and we have some context about the problems. That common goal is actually a tight binder. It will not just take us to this conversation today. We will probably connect online. We will probably exchange ideas in the future as well. Right? Not just us and the students, but also us and the panelists. And we actually have been doing some of it in the background. It also helps brands really become human. Because let's just trust it. Brand is a vague thing. It's a vague concept. We try to humanize it through a logo, through a story, through various things. And nothing helps more than purpose, because if you have a shared purpose, if you have a shared common goal, it's easy to talk to each other and tell you that, hey, I'm also like you. If, for example, if a brand comes and tells you, hey, I also believe that plastic water bottles should not exist, you'll be like, oh wow, this one thinks like me, maybe I will give my business to them. But it's not that simple, and we'll talk about it in a little more detail. And there are a few kinds of purposes that exist, of course not meant to be exhaustive or textbook like. But I just put together what kind of purposes I've seen around myself. There's obviously functional purpose. Okay. How do you use either through ingredients or through a very tangible proposition what kind of purpose you are talking about? Right? So let's say Indigo Airlines. It's very, very clearly talking about what we want to be the low-cost leader in the world, not just in India. And they're 18 years in the making, and they're actually able to do a very good job at it. Why? Because they know that there is an aspirational class of travelers who want to travel low cost, who want to travel low fuss. And then, as you'll see in the subsequent slide, they've actually viewed it together with another very interesting purpose, which is environmentalism. They actually tied it together with the whole goal of sustainability and said, hey, you know what, you are not just traveling light, or you're not traveling without the high cost. But because you don't carry ovens, they actually save more carbon dioxide emission. Because you don't carry, large expensive seats, they're actually saving you, saving multiple aspects of the planet, fuel, and so on. And that becomes part of the purpose, and a lot of people truly believe in it. Now, obviously, a lot of you will say, hey, it's scalable low cost, and that's okay. That's for a certain category of people, and then there is another category who believes in environmentalism. Not a lot of brands will find one or more purposes, come together beautifully, intertwine them and use them. Indio has done a fantastic job, and it's one of the brands that I very immensely respect. Another example is Minimalist, a company that sold clean skincare until recently when they got acquired by Unilever. At the core of it, they're only saying one thing: okay, we're going to build very, very clean brands, and we're going to keep it really transparent, and that's our differentiator. That's how we communicate with our customers. It's loosely based on what Ordinary has done in the global market. Right? There's also ethical purpose that you can set up. And if you're familiar with the Whole Truth as a brand, have you guys seen their storytelling? It is just phenomenal. And Shashank Mehta one day just rose and said, hey, you know what, everyone's going to claim that they are clean labels, but clean labels are just not possible because they're not going to be viable, right? So how do I communicate with the limited amount of, clean ingredients that I can do to make a viable business out of it, and communicate very strongly and create a differentiation out of it, and make it, very relatable for my target audience. Then again, there's Tata Soulful, which used to be Soulful, and my wife used to be one of the brand managers there. They literally are a company that dealt in millet supply chain for decades before they entered into creating a brand of their own. And for them, it was not just about, hey, there's a new thing, millets, and we can, talk about it. They've been practicing it for years. They've been practicing it with both their kids before they even created that brand. And when they created that brand, they were very clear. Hey, it helps the environment. It helps the, kids have a better, healthy, sort of a diet. And then they created and create stories around it, right? Stories that resonated at multiple levels and led to their acquisition. I especially would want to talk about the third example here, which is Tata Power. And in India, the most trustworthy brand for decades, almost a century now, has been Tata. And there is a reason for that. Recently, in Bombay, there was a power station to be set up, a power substation to be set up, and the government allots you land for it. Okay? So they allotted land in some part of Bombay at a specific location, and then Tata had to apply for it. They had to do paperwork worth months. All of that got done, and then suddenly, when they were about to go and acquire that piece of land, it was earlier being used as a park. When they were about to do that, they saw political activism and local activism around it. They went and they actually heard them out. And the reason was, hey, it's a community park and we want to not get it destroyed. Now, Tata was well within its rights to say, hey, I don't care, go talk to the government. They said, and very openly at that, hey, we are going to relook at options because we understand this is important for the community. You've spent months, you've spent thousands of dollars preparing, acquiring, this particular piece of land for a job that the government has given to you, but you're still willing to renegotiate. It means waste of time, it means waste of business objectives. But for them, they cannot have that done without, not being looked at as an ethical company. And I think that really stands out for me. Of course, social differentiation. If you look at Urban Company and their recent IPO success has a very strong social purpose at the back of it, which is, hey, we are enabling people to have dignity of labor in India. Just the other day we were discussing, it's really expensive now to have electricians and plumbers in India. And the reason it is expensive is because now they are getting their fair wage. And now they are getting some sort of social security along with it, which earlier they were not getting. So it is a good kind of inflation that we are talking about. All thanks to a company like Urban Company that started in a noisy market in 2014 and then cut through the noise by means of creating a purposeful brand, of course, backed with fantastic execution and innovation at every step, which are the other two pillars of course, creating a great brand. Yeah. Okay. I'll talk about my former employer, Razorpay, which created a beautiful brand out of just one simple idea. India is going to grow on the back of entrepreneurs. And if I can enable entrepreneurs, then I will be enabling India. And that's their whole purpose. And you'd be amazed if you ever speak to entrepreneurs directly, you'll be amazed to see the kind of love they have for the brand of Razorpay. And not for no reason is it on the top 100 brands of the country for a few years now. It's a fairly young company. Of course, environmental is a bit that we keep talking about. Just one example that I would like to talk about here is Atom. BLDC Motors is an innovation that has existed for a while. They focused on how we would take this and create a low power consumption setup that is scalable across use cases. And then not just that one aspect, but go deeper into it and make a truly recognizable brand in terms of the whole low power consumption idea, right? And tying it to, of course, environmentalism. But here's the thing, it cannot be superficial. So you can't be saying something that you will stand for X, and then you don't stand for X, then it will get caught, I wanted to actually play this 10 seconds, but essentially it's exactly the same. And it's true for brands, right? You can't just act like you truly care about the environment. If you don't, it shows. And there have been examples. You can try to say that, hey, they are trying to make diesel more environmental friendly, and then end up doing something like Dieselgate, which Volkswagen ended up doing. Or you could be saying, you could be British Petroleum and say things like, hey, we want to move towards green energy without deploying capital towards it. Or even Coke, had a similar, journey on that front. And of course, brand alone will not cut it, or rather, brand has innovation as its core pillar. So if you say I'm going to create a great brand and then you don't innovate, your brand is going to die, right? So it's an important pillar of how you innovate as a company, and it's almost a pillar that most successful companies use really well. I'd like to take the case of Tesla. They have created a great brand by being like a company that makes environmentally friendly automotive solutions, right from cars to trucks to robo taxis now. But having said that, at the heart of it, they are betting on a cheaper, less hardware used, commoditized technology called computer vision, as opposed to relying on LiDAR, which is significantly more expensive, more hardware intensive, and so on. That is backed by innovation. That is going to flow into